Welcome to the Cleveland Orchestra's On a Personal Note, where every story has a soundtrack. In difficult situations or moments of sheer joy, music connects us with our humanity.
So I'm Emilio Yinas, and Yinas is pronounced like a Y in Spanish and has an accent over the A. I am assistant principal second violinist at the Cleveland Orchestra for quite a long time. And this is my 52nd season with the orchestra, if anybody can believe that. I was born in Havana, Cuba. I started violin at 7.5 years old, but my family thought I should be going to medical school, which I had been accepted to. We had a different system in Cuba, but because of political situation, they closed the medical schools. So I became full-time musician, and it was music that actually make my career possible. So I came here. I went to Detroit for 3 years, and then I was fortunate enough to come to Cleveland. You know, I was probably the last one that was hired by the famous George Szell. Louis Lane, who was Szell's right-hand assistant, you know, the conductor, I had conducted there, and he approached me and said, "Will you be interested in coming to Cleveland?" And I said, "Sure." So that year it didn't pan out. I got a letter saying, "No, Mr. Szell says he will not audition anyone on the contract in Detroit because Sixten Ehrling, the conductor of Detroit then, said to Szell, you shouldn't try to steal my players, blah, blah." So a year later, my first son had been born, Emilio Jr., and then I was at home getting ready to go on a little tour of Michigan with the Detroit Symphony, and the phone rang, and it was Trogdon, who was Szell's personal manager, and said, "Well, we're having auditions next Sunday, and Mrs. Szell would like to invite you." So I said, "Well, I hadn't been practicing, and I was going on this tour. You cannot practice when you're traveling." So I hung up the phone. I said, "I'm not coming." My wife, Gloria, was changing diapers, and she said, "Who was that?" And they said, "That was Trogdon from Cleveland," and said they were having auditions next Sunday. So Gloria said, "What do you say?" I said, "I'm not going." He says, "Well, call him back and tell him that you're going." So I was annoyed. I said, "I'm the one that has to play for Szell. You're not." So anyway, I called back, and I practiced all that week. And Sunday I auditioned. There were like, I don't know, 35 violinists. But before the audition was over, Trogdon came over and said, "Don't leave, I think it's in the bag," which was an expression that Szell always said when things were done in a recording, where things were okay, so it's in the bag. So in a nutshell, that's how I came to Cleveland in 1968 at the end of the first Blossom season. I remember after the first rehearsal, I came home and I said to Gloria, "You know, I think we were playing a Brahms symphony, something that I had played a few times." So I said, "You know, I heard things that I never heard before." All of a sudden, this was this perfection, this clarity, and Szell was a master of balance in the orchestra, and he was a taskmaster, but you know, he was a man that had tremendous authority. He was a perfectionist. He was all about the music. Actually, we used to say that our best performances were sometimes Thursday mornings, because it was like you could cut the air with a knife. I mean, the tension was because he didn't tolerate mediocrity. He didn't tolerate people that were not engaged. That was my first impression, but you know, I totally was so happy, because it was like the air that you breathed at Severn Soul was like clean air. There was no nonsense. And for me, it changed my life, because yeah, it was really special, and I was happy. And Cleveland was a wonderful place to live, as we found out. We were playing Brahms' first concerto for piano was Bruno Leonardo Gelber, very famous, wonderful Argentinian pianist. And there's a famous, very difficult fugue for the second violins in that concerto. And that Wednesday afternoon, the thing was gone pretty well. And everybody used to get so nervous when that moment arrived because Zell would, stir up people and things. And so Thursday morning, my second son, Lauren David, was born in McDonald House here in Cleveland. I didn't go to the rehearsal because he was born that morning. So all of a sudden, I get home. I was at the hospital when everything had gone well. I was relaxed. I went somewhere for lunch and had a drink. I came home. And the phone rings. And there was my stand partner at that time saying, "Emilio, you need to call Trogdon." I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, Zell is having him call all the hospitals in town to find out whether you're going to come to play tonight." So I called Trog. We used to call him Trog. I said, "Trog, don't worry. I'll be there tonight." I think Zell was definitely one of the great conductors of all time. I mean, not only his knowledge of music was immense, and of course he was a very good pianist also. And he was in Cleveland 25 years before he passed away. I think Franz has done an amazing job. It's a totally different approach. We didn't call Zell George, for heaven's sakes, God forbid. But Franz is a very easy person to work with. He is a phenomenal conductor. He has a pure conducting technique. And I know Franz went by and we all often hug each other. And and Zell was not huggable like Francis, I mean, for sure. I personally feel close to Franz musically, and during performances, I know that he appreciates people that are dedicated and beautiful playing. There's a tremendous communication with his eyes and his emotions. Oh, absolutely. I think that I have a very good, close relationship with Franz. Now we have achieved an amazing level of brilliance. I think it's unsurpassed. Franz is like a guy standing in the corner. Nobody knows who he is. He could be anybody. He doesn't have any airs about him. He's very approachable. He doesn't dress fancy. So from every point of view, he is totally a very approachable person. So occasionally Gloria says, "Why don't you come tonight?" Well, although she comes every Saturday. She has had a subscription in the dress circle, the first row, ever since I came to New York, the same seat for 52 years. Poor Gloria. She always likes to sit where nobody sees her. And on a couple of occasions, I go to rehearsal. Sometimes I see people kind of looking for friends, and they don't find friends. And I go in there and go look for what Franz has done a couple of times. He goes, sits back there and talks to Gloria. So nobody knows for Franz. Franz is talking to Gloria. The amount of repertoire that we have done with Franz is just remarkable. The operas, Tristan, was unforgettable, especially, of course, Rosenkavalier. But, one of the most incredible moments, and to close the circle about incredible experiences, was last year. We opened the series in Carnegie Hall in October. Beethoven is very special. I think Franz talks about Beethoven, what he means. It's about life. It's about something. There's something in Beethoven that is like the nobility of the music, and the strength is something like steel. And it's unique. I mean, you play Mahler, you play Brahms, and all of a sudden you play Beethoven, and there's something in this music that is just picks you up and lifts you. And the nines, especially because of the enormous ending, and the idea of having a chorus with a symphony with singers. I mean, it's one of the most moving, beautiful things that you can imagine. And the music is never frivolous, it's never bombastic. It doesn't matter how many times you play it, whether it's the Ninth or the Fifth Symphony. It is sometimes, I have colleagues who say, Emilio, how many times have you played the Fifth Symphony? I say, you know something? It really doesn't matter. Every time is different. And every time is the same incredible experience that how anybody could have written such music. And especially when they wrote the Ninth Symphony, he was deaf. You have to appreciate what it must mean to a musician of that stature, not to be able to hear what he wrote. And yet, he wrote this music. The music always ends up with some joyous, hopeful message. The first movement is just monumental. That's such an uplifting progression from the beginning that the orchestra starts quiet and then the warning comes that is something incredibly humanistic that is going to come. It's all about humanity, about the spirit of man. I would just hope that the young people in this society in general, especially young people, they need to wish that they would relate more to this music. You can see what they discover in their faces when they listen to the music. It just lights up their spirit. I think this music, the Ode to Joy is just one part of the symphony, but it does give you a hope that there is something so above us that it will pull us through this calamity that has befallen us. The rush that you get after you play the Ode to Joy and the last movement of the Ninth Symphony is just, you can see what the audience does. You know, and we know how many sets of symphonies we have, 3 or 4, the Cleveland Orchestra alone. I played 2 Beethoven cycles in Japan. The reactions of the audience are the same. And of course in Vienna it was just spectacular. And so that's all I have to say. That's what this music can do for people, and I hope that people more and more through these podcasts and through these things, maybe we now will reach even more people. Great music communicates to people of all religions and all races and all genders more than anything in the world. I can guarantee you that.
Emilio Ynes, now in his 52nd season with the Cleveland Orchestra, chose Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Emilio calls it a monumental achievement of the human spirit, and we think that says it all. If you could use a Beethoven-sized boost of joy and optimism right now, stick around for the first movement of the Ninth, recorded live in 2018. And for more monumental achievements of the human spirit, check out clevelandorchestra.com/podcast.